the Cleveland Browns, Shedeur Sanders, the Dallas Cowboys, and Andrew Berry, reportedly losing his absolute mind. What started as whispers in league circles has now turned into full-on sirens, with insiders claiming that Shedeur Sanders may be on the move and the destination. None other than Jerry Jones' personal reality show, the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, that Dallas. The empire of spectacle. The TMZ of the NFL. The team that could turn a Tuesday practice into a docuseries. And the Browns? Well, they're watching the future walk out the door, not because he failed, but because they failed him. Let's rewind for a second. Shedeur Sanders wasn't supposed to be a bench warmer. This isn't some raw day 3 draft pick who needs to sit in a dark room for 3 seasons and learn the system.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be.
No, this kid came in ready. Polished. Popular. He had the resume, the swagger, the accuracy, the leadership. He was the moment. But Cleveland, in their eternal pursuit of doing things the hard way, decided to slow play him. Weeks passed. The months. And despite the obvious lack of spark under center, Sanders remained glued to the bench like he was being punished for being too popular. Too magnetic. Too capable? You could feel the frustration building. Fans started asking questions. Analysts began poking holes in the coaching logic. And inside the facility? Sources say players were growing restless, especially the younger guys, the ones who see Shedeur as one of them. They watched him work. They saw the zip in his throws. They knew what he could do. But the front office? Crickets. And now? The chaos is boiling over. Reports out of Berea claim that Andrew Berry, Cleveland's GM, is fuming. Not because Shedeur failed to meet expectations, but because the pressure to trade him has reached a point of no return. It's all unraveling. And the worst part? The Browns did this to themselves. See, in the NFL, timing is everything. You don't always get to control when your quarterback of the future walks through the door, but when he does, you better be ready. You better have a plan. You better not bury him under cliches like, he needs to earn it, or, we're sticking with our guy. That's how you lose the locker room. That's how you lose the fans. That's how you lose the narrative. And Cleveland? They lost all 3. Meanwhile, in Dallas, Jerry Jones is licking his chops. Because no one loves a splashy move like Ojera. He's the maestro of hype. The guy who'll sign a player just to make the Sunday Night Football broadcast say, "Are the Cowboys back?" And Shedeur Sanders? He's the exact kind of story the Cowboys live for. Famous. Marketable. The son of Deion Sanders, a Cowboys legend, by the way. Oh, and did we mention he's good? Let's be honest. Dak Prescott's leash in Dallas is getting shorter by the snap. The fans are restless. The media's circling. And the Cowboys haven't had a truly electric QB prospect in the building since, well, ever. A Shedeur trade isn't just a football move. It's a branding move. A ratings bonanza. A Jerry Jones fever dream. And for Cleveland? It's an all-time embarrassment. Imagine trading away the quarterback your fans were begging you to start. Not because he failed, but because your organization lacked the courage to pivot. Because your coaching staff couldn't admit the starter wasn't getting it done. Because your front office refused to listen to the very people showing up every Sunday in the cold to scream their lungs out for a team that keeps playing scared. That's what this is, scared football. Scared management. Scared of the optics, scared of the shift, scared of the inevitable headlines that might ask, why didn't they start Shedeur sooner? But guess what? You're going to get those headlines anyway. Except now they'll say, why did Cleveland let Shedeur Sanders go? And Andrew Berry? Oh, he sees it coming. Sources say he's been calling every contact in the league, trying to squash the rumors, trying to spin the story back in Cleveland's favor. But the toothpaste is out of the tube. The tweet has been sent. The fans have turned. And worst of all, the Cowboys might actually pull this off. Let's talk about the fit. On the field, Shedeur's playstyle matches perfectly with the modern NFL. He's got touch, vision, timing, and that unshakable presence you can't teach. Off the field? He's a marketing goldmine. For Jerry Jones, this isn't just a quarterback, it's a franchise-altering pivot. The Cowboys are always one story away from dominating every headline, and Shedeur brings with him a built-in audience, a college following, a media buzz that hasn't been seen since, well, Dion. It's poetic, isn't it? The son of a Cowboy legend. Cast aside by Cleveland. Rescued by Big D. It writes itself. And for Cleveland? It's a nightmare. You don't just lose a quarterback. You lose your credibility. You lose the locker room. You lose trust. Because now every player in that facility is thinking, if they did this to Shedeur, who else might they bury next? How do you convince a team to believe in a plan that clearly wasn't prepared for talent arriving early? How do you keep your fan base loyal when the most exciting thing about your franchise was gift-wrapped to another team for the sake of stability? Because let's be real, what did stability ever get Cleveland? Mediocrity. Half-finished seasons. Empty seats. And now? Regret. Unless Andrew Berry pulls off a miracle, this move, or even just the possibility of it, will go down as a legacy-defining moment. A front office implosion that sent a would-be star to the most dramatic, most visible, most spotlight-drenched team in the NFL. If Shedeur ends up in a Cowboys uniform, slinging touchdowns under the Monday night lights, Cleveland will never live it down. They'll become the answer to a trivia question. The punchline in every sports debate show. The what-if that hangs over the franchise for a decade. And you can already hear the commentary. He was right there. He wanted to play. He was ready. And they chose, what, exactly? Not only does this trade possibility expose the Browns' inability to develop their most intriguing asset, it highlights a fundamental truth about the modern NFL. It's not about the best player. It's about the boldest team. And Dallas? Say what you will, but they never play scared. Now the only question is, will Shedeur be suiting up in silver and blue by week 8? Or will Cleveland finally wake up and realize that the future isn't something to fear? It's something to play. And if they don't, well, they'll get to watch him do it. In Dallas. Under the lights. On prime time. With the whole league watching. Let's not pretend this is just another NFL story. This is the story. A defining moment. A fork in the road not just for Shedeur Sanders, but for the Cleveland Browns. A franchise that, if we're being brutally honest, has built an entire identity around almost getting it right. And this would be peak Cleveland. Because if Shedeur walks, especially to Dallas, of all places, it won't just sting. It will be a full-on cultural meltdown. Not just a bad trade. Not just a blown opportunity. No, this will be the NFL's version of that friend who broke up with their soulmate because they needed space, only to watch them marry someone else 6 months later. In a castle. With doves. You really think Browns fans are going to sit quietly through that? You really think they're going to forgive the front office for letting a quarterback with arm talent, leadership qualities, and generational buzz slip away just because the coaching staff wanted to stick to the plan? Let me put it like this. If Shedeur Sanders ends up on the Cowboys, you might as well lock Cleveland Twitter for maintenance. Because it's going to combust. And what makes this whole thing so mind-numbingly tragic is that it was avoidable. All of it. The signs were there. The talent was there. The support from the locker room was very clearly there. And yet the Browns, somehow, someway, still found a way to turn a luxury into a liability. They took something that could have changed the course of their franchise and buried it beneath generic coach speak and rigid schemes. We want to bring him along slowly. Translation, we're scared of what happens if he's good too fast. Scared of having to admit the guy ahead of him isn't it. Scared of losing control of the narrative. Scared of the fan base demanding something this front office didn't plan for. Well, guess what? You don't get to schedule greatness. You don't get to pace momentum. When a player is ready, you play him. When a spark shows up in your building, you light the fire. You don't smother it because you're trying to make your 5-year plan look smart. And now, because they chose control over courage, the Browns might be watching their future torch them in a different uniform. In a different city. In a starred helmet. Can we talk about the optics of that? Shedeur Sanders, son of Dion, primetime, Sanders, making plays in a Cowboys uniform, in the same building where his father built part of his legend? That's not just a football story, that's cinema. That's full circle drama. That's something the NFL would cut into whatever game is airing to show you live. And the Browns? They'll be stuck in the corner of the broadcast as the team that let it happen. Not because they had to, but because they couldn't get out of their own way. And let's be very clear here, this isn't just about a player being traded. This is about a power shift. This is about a young quarterback realizing, if y'all don't see what I'm bringing to the table, I'll go where I'm wanted, not just rostered. It's about agency, autonomy. It's about not being anyone's backup plan, insurance policy, or long-term project. And Shedeur? He's not waiting around to be someone else's contingency. Not when he's already walking like a starter, thinking like a starter, training like a starter. He's not trying to sit through QB purgatory for 3 years while the front office plays politics with the depth chart. And why should he? He's marketable. He's media savvy. He's got a built-in following and he's playing the PR game better than half the league's vets. All he needs is one team to say, we'll actually use you. And when that team is the Cowboys, now we're talking superstardom. Now we're talking national endorsements, viral highlights, jersey sales, 9-figure Nike deals, custom cleats with his face on them, and ESPN monologues about what could have been for Cleveland. And look, some people will call it hype. Some will say the Cowboys are just being the Cowboys. But let's be real, Dallas makes splashy moves because they can. And Shedeur Sanders? He's not just a splash. He's a tsunami waiting to happen. Cleveland had him on the launch pad, and they left him standing there. Countdown aborted. Engines cooling. And now? They might be forced to watch the show from the parking lot. Let's talk about the domino effect for a second. If Shedeur goes to Dallas and shines, that puts Cleveland under the harshest microscope imaginable. It paints Andrew Berry as the guy who couldn't recognize talent even when it was throwing dimes right in his face. It makes Kevin Stefanski look like a control freak who outcoached himself straight into another rebuild. And it cements the Browns, once again, as a cautionary tale in the NFL's How Not To handbook. And how does that impact the next young star who's drafted there? You think any top QB prospect is going to want to land in Cleveland after watching this? You think any young offensive coordinator is going to risk his reputation on a franchise that can't even handle a gift-wrapped quarterback prospect? This trade, even if it hasn't happened yet, has already started to shape perception. Because the message is loud and clear. If you're electric in Cleveland, you better bring a backup charger. Because they'll drain the life out of your momentum before they admit the system needs changing. And now, all eyes are on Shedeur. On what he does next. On how he moves. On how Dallas maneuvers. And on Andrew Berry, because whatever move he makes from here, it better be perfect. Because Cleveland doesn't just need to win eventually. They need to win now. They need to prove to their fan base, to the locker room, to the league, that they're not the same old Browns. That they can spot greatness and nurture it, not sideline it, not trade it, not clip its wings before it even takes flight. Because if they can't, they won't just lose Shedeur Sanders. They'll lose the next one. And the one after that. And all they'll be left with is regret. And replay clips. And a whole lot of what if. Because in the NFL, perception is power. And once a franchise becomes known for mismanaging talent, especially quarterbacks, that stink lingers. Ask the Jets. Ask the Commanders. Ask any team that spent the last 10 years selling fans on potential while quietly burying the very players that could have saved them. And that's the path Cleveland is sliding toward, face first, no brakes, with a fan base screaming at the windshield. So what happens now? Well, if you're Andrew Berry, you're probably pacing a conference room, losing sleep, and refreshing your phone every 5 minutes, praying Jerry Jones doesn't pull the trigger. Because once that deal goes down, if it goes down, all control is gone. Gone are the press releases. Gone are the "we still believe in him" soundbites. Gone is the fantasy that Shedeur Sanders was part of the long-term vision. Because the moment he's in a Cowboys jersey, the narrative shifts permanently. He becomes their guy. And Cleveland becomes the team that let him go before he ever had the chance to prove them wrong, or worse, prove them right. Let's pause for a second and talk about the Cowboys' role in this circus. If there's one thing Jerry Jones knows how to do, it's sell a story. And Shedeur Sanders? He's not just a quarterback. He's a narrative machine. The son of a Hall of Famer. Dripping with charisma. Already polished in front of a camera. He's the kind of player who doesn't just play the game. He knows how to market it. That's catnip for Dallas. That's jersey sales. Primetime ratings. Monday morning headlines. And Jerry? Jerry lives for that. Let's be honest. The Cowboys don't even have to need a quarterback to go after Shedeur. They just need to smell opportunity. And right now, Cleveland is leaking dysfunction like a broken hydrant. There's blood in the water. And Dallas? They're the Sharks. But let's go even deeper. Because the part that's not being said out loud, but everyone feels, is this. Shedeur isn't just good. He's different. He's not your average rookie quarterback. He's a brand. He's a symbol of how Gen Z athletes move, confident, calculated, unapologetically themselves. He's not going to play the quiet, wait-your-turn game just because a coaching staff isn't ready for change. He knows his value. He knows his leverage. And now, the league knows it too. That's why these trade rumors are so electric. Because if the Cowboys make this move, they're not just getting a quarterback, they're making a statement. They're saying, we'll do what Cleveland couldn't. We'll believe. That hits deep. Especially for a city like Cleveland, whose fans are some of the most loyal and most tired in the league. Tired of rebuilds. Tired of promises. Tired of being told to be patient while watching other franchises take big swings and reap big rewards. And now, the front office is sitting on a ticking time bomb. Because the choice isn't just about football anymore. It's about identity. Are the Browns the kind of team that clings to old models and safe decisions? Or are they ready to embrace the future? Because Shedeur Sanders is the future, whether it's in Cleveland or not. He's the player who makes other players want to play with him. He's the guy fans want to believe in. And if he ends up in a franchise that actually values those things, the Browns won't just be watching highlights. They'll be watching a movement they could have led from the sidelines. Let's talk fan response for a second. Because right now, Browns Nation is at a breaking point. People aren't just frustrated, they're done. They're tired of hearing about development timelines and depth chart order. They're looking at the scoreboard and asking the only question that matters. Why not now? Why not take the leap? Why not play the guy with the spark? Why keep doing the same thing and expecting different results? And if the front office won't answer those questions, the fans will find someone who will. That's how loyalty erodes. Slowly, bitterly, until one day, First Energy Stadium is a third full and Twitter spaces are filled with nothing but trade rumors and resignation. And you know what? The players feel it too. Don't underestimate how much this kind of internal conflict fractures a locker room. You think veterans don't notice when the most dynamic guy in the building isn't getting reps? You think rookies don't get discouraged when they realize talent takes a backseat to politics? Culture is fragile in the NFL. And once trust breaks, it's a long, cold road back. And Kevin Stefanski? He's at the eye of this storm. This could be his legacy moment. Because if he backs the front office and loses the locker room, he's gone. If he backs the locker room and benches the safe option, he might actually save his job, but only if it works. And that's the risk. But it's also the reward. Because make no mistake, if Stefanski has the guts to unleash Shedeur and he delivers, he becomes a hero. Not just to fans, but to a team that desperately wants someone, to believe in again. But if he sticks with the status quo, and Shedeur ends up in a different uniform lighting up Sunday Night Football, he'll be a footnote. The guy who had the answer and refused to solve the equation. The one who chose comfort over courage. And for a coach, that's the kiss of death. So where does that leave us? Simple. At a crossroads. Cleveland can either be bold or be forgotten. They can either step into the future with a quarterback who was built for this moment, or watch another team turn him into a superstar. They can either fix this while they still can, or let the Cowboys do what they never had the nerve to try. And if they don't blame the fans for walking. Don't blame the players for questioning. And don't blame Shedeur for leaving. Because he gave them a chance. He gave them a spark. And they let it flicker out. So now we wait. eyes glued to the headlines, phones buzzing with rumors, and one question hanging in the air. Will Cleveland do what's right? Or will they, once again, write their own tragedy? Only this time, the hero doesn't stay around to save them. He gets traded. Heroes. And the Browns? They just become the team that had everything and let it slip away. Cleveland's timeline doesn't just reset, it implodes. Everything the front office told fans about development, about trusting the plan, about having a long-term vision, gets tossed into the shredder. Because if Shedeur goes on to succeed in Dallas, which is very possible under the media spotlight and quarterback-first circus Jerry Jones runs, then the Browns can't pretend this was ever about patience. It becomes crystal clear. It was about fear. Fear of change, fear of losing control, fear of being proven wrong. And let's be honest, the internet is not going to be kind about it. The memes? Instant. The tweets? Savage. The ESPN panel segments? Brutal. You'll have Skip Bayless crowing from across the country, saying the Browns never understood what they had. You'll have Shannon Sharpe shaking his head in disbelief. NFL Reddit melting down in threads labeled, "The Shedeur Situation, Cleveland's latest tragedy." But worse than all of that? You'll have Browns fans looking at their own front office and saying, why are we always the cautionary tale? Because that's what this is turning into, a parable. The franchise that had something exciting, electric, different, and benched it out of fear. The team that chose politics over playmakers. The one that kept asking what if he's not ready, instead of asking what if he is? And while the Browns stall, the Cowboys are already writing the next act. You can almost hear the press conference now. We believe in Shedeur's ability to lead this franchise, Jerry Jones will say, grinning ear to ear. He's got the presence, the arm, and the swagger this league thrives on. We're not just building a team, we're building a legacy. Meanwhile, Cleveland? They're stuck with post-game interviews full of blank stares and locker room tension. Stefanski trying to spin another loss. Andrew Barry dodging questions. And fans wondering if they've been watching the wrong movie all along, because the star left before he even got to perform. Let that sink in. The Browns may lose the most marketable, magnetic quarterback prospect they've had in years without ever seeing what he could really do. And they'll have no one to blame but themselves. No one forced them to keep him chained to the bench. No one made them downplay his leadership, his skill set, or his upside. They made those decisions all on their own. And now, they may have made their bed. Only question is, will they lie in it? Or finally, at the 11th hour, pull a move no one expects? Let him throw. Let him lead. Let him be the thing they claim they're building toward. Because if they don't, Dallas will. And once Shedeur puts on that star, there's no taking it back.